Hello and welcome to everyone to another episode of our virtual roundtable series entitled Navigating Now. For those who are back, welcome back. We're always love to have recurring listeners. For those who are joining for the first time, welcome to the platform. Just for those folks, as a reminder of what Navigating Now is, it's really a chance for leaders from different parts of our community to come together to talk about challenges that exist in our business lives, in our personal lives, and particularly as we look at the coming wave and waves that we've been through of uncertainty. How have we all managed through it, and what are some things we've learned, and what are some things we're putting into practice moving forward? So today's episode is episode 60, a big milestone, I think. And our episode today is entitled Finance and Partnerships: The Power of Knowing Your Business, How to Use Business Acumen, Financial Acumen, and Partnerships as rocket fuel to change not just your career trajectory, but to make the organizations that we are a part of that much more successful. I am joined by a good friend of mine, Matt Porio, who is the managing partner of FinanceIQ, which is a really great financial and risk management advisory firm that not only does amazing training work, but advisory work as well. So with that, Matt, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Griff. As I was saying before, I've been looking forward to this all day, and love the platform, love the opportunity to speak.
All right. Well, you were looking forward to this all day, so I aim not to disappoint that anticipation. So, Matt, we're obviously going to talk a lot about finance and partnerships. I'd love to start just with a little bit of your path towards the world of finance. I think some folks just call it finance. I guess some folks in the more esoteric nature might call it finance. My first question for you is it finance or is it finance?
Great question. And I could say it depends on who I'm talking to, but that wouldn't be a good answer. I always said finance.
Okay. All right. I would agree with that. But I guess there are probably some folks out there who say, no, it's definitely finance. An argument to be decided in a future day. But Matt, I know finance is obviously a big part and a big part of your passion, not just with the work you do with your clients, the work you do with your partners. But I also know it's just a passion of yours in general, the world of finance and how it continues to change, how it continues to evolve. I'm really, really curious to hear where did that passion for the world of finance, for the world of numbers really come from?
You know, Griff, like a lot of people, inspiration comes from other people. And I had teachers, I had a math teacher in high school who really inspired me to pursue math when that really wasn't what I wanted to do. And when I got to college, I had some professors, I went in as a history major, who basically said, take a look at this and see if this interests you. And it was economics, and it was finance, and it was financial products. And I never really thought about it before. And what I found, and who knew, is that it was something that I really enjoyed, because to me, it represented two things. It represented a problem to solve, and it also represented a challenge every day. And I love that. In the world of finance, in a lot of businesses, but every day you wake up and there's something new going on. There's a new situation, there's a new product, there's a new market. And I love being relevant in terms of what's going on now. And that has continued to fuel my passion with a real desire to learn.
I love that desire to learn. And I would agree. There's probably no better industry that talks about how things evolve quickly and how it's really, really hard to put your fingerprint on why things happen. Always, we kind of are learning things even in the historical context of how things have changed. But we're glad that you've made it a passion of yours. And I know you've helped a lot of clients and customers out there in many different ways. Matt, I'd be curious to get a little bit of a walkthrough, because I know you've had some really major career stops with some large companies, some advisory. Could you give the audience just a little bit of a run through, maybe an elevator pitch of what your career in finance has really been like? And as you talk about that, would love to hear you highlight a little bit of how knowing the business and how knowing the financials of whatever organization you're part of really set you apart in terms of your career trajectory?
Great, thank you for asking that. When I first started in financial services and the financial services industry, it was at Salomon Brothers back, revealed 1986. And I was part of the mortgage-backed securities trading group, as well as an allocator then. And I can honestly say I didn't know a thing. It seemed I really didn't have a plan coming out of college. I was an economics major, history major. I had taken an internship at a retail brokerage. I took the LSATs, so law school was out. And then I said, okay, well, what's my next move? And that interests me. And I think a lot of it came from, as I said before, the inspiration of my professors and my teachers, and also my classmates who were going into that. And I said, let me try this. And went there and learned a lot. I'll say that. For the place it was and the time it was, I learned a tremendous amount. And what was interesting about that was when I went there every day, it was a little scary because I didn't, they're going to find me out. I don't know anything. Okay. 6 months into my job, and I always remember this, I had this opportunity. And they said, Matt, we have somebody new who's coming in, teach them what to do. And it came out. And I said, you know what? If I really know something, I can teach it to somebody else. And all of a sudden, it was revealed to me that I do know something here. And I did actually accumulate some knowledge and, know what's going on in this field. I moved on from there to business school after that. I wanted to really sort of expand my horizons. I knew I wanted to be in finance. And I was pretty certain it was financial markets, but I really had a narrow experience. And so without the undergraduate experience at business school, I went into an MBA program. And that really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I'd never really taken a lot of business courses before. And what it really helped me define is that, I made the right choice. This is what I'd like to do. I didn't want to do marketing. I didn't want to do operations. I didn't want to do sort of running a corporation. I really enjoyed finance and the challenge of finance. So I had an internship at Chase in the capital markets group and joined them after I got out of business school and joined them as a currency trader, where I started making markets and covering Scandinavia. And I think what they said is this guy, just starting out, nothing, not a lot goes on there. So let's start him out with that. And what was a unique experience about that is, and now again, talking back to the 90s, that was where the European financial crisis of the 90s started. And it was, an incredible learning experience because you didn't have any other choice. So I learned a ton about how global markets worked, how interest rates influence currencies, how the different asset classes influence each other, and how to think on my feet because they were the quick and the dead. And that was really apparent, in that situation. After a few years, I said, again, I think my perspective is a little narrow. So I went on and took the CFA, which after a year, I said, why am I doing this? But, 2-3 years later, having passed all of them, I said, this really, again, expanded my education. And I moved on to American Express, first as the head of their trading in American Express Bank in New York, and then got the opportunity to run their global markets group, really operating mostly out of London and in New York. And again, it was an incredible learning experience. And I was always trying to learn. And I said, if I don't learn something today, I'm not staying still, I'm moving backwards. So up to that point, I didn't know anything about managing business. And now I had a global business. So once again, you learn and you have to learn fast. And that seemed to be my life story, is you either learn fast or you don't. And was proud to say that I grew the business. I traveled a lot. I think I didn't spend more than a week in any one place for a while, but it was very exciting, and it was a great experience to run a global business. What had happened to American Express, they were moving on from the American Express Bank, which I knew, and I said, I'm going to take my team from here and go to Bank of Ireland and run their global markets group for the US out of Connecticut, which is where I'm from and where I currently sit. Did that for a number of years and then said, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years at a bank. I really would like to run my own business without the bureaucracy of a bank, to be honest, without having to do things I really didn't want to do. I really wanted to make decisions about the market. I really wanted to help clients. I didn't want to sit in meeting after meeting after meeting about important items to the bank, but not important to me. So I established a company called Lucas and Associates, which is a risk advisory firm. And we focused mainly, this is 2007, by the way, and no, I didn't see anything coming a year later. Everyone says, oh, you must have seen things coming. I said, if I saw things coming, you know, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be, you know, on an island. But it was, you know, really walking right into the mix. So again, it seemed to be the theme. Trial by fire, you had to jump into the mix. And once again, I learned a ton. During that time, I transitioned also to, you know, if I'm going to sell this business, I have to teach my clients about what I do. So that's the first question I get. What do you do? Why am I talking to you? And from that came this, I guess, a demand, I would say, for training and for teaching. And that's about 10, 11 years ago. And what I found, I loved it. I loved being able to teach. I love being able to interact with people. And as you said before, Griff, talk about something I am very passionate about, because I don't think you can fake that. People, you know, people see if you're real or not very quickly. And this is something that I love. And really have been doing that ever since. I teamed up, and we'll talk about partnerships in a while, with my current partner. And we actually had met on a job that we were thrown together on, and said, you know, respect what he does. He respects what I do. We have different backgrounds. We're passionate about training. And we formed FinanceIQ about 7 years ago. And it's been a wonderment ever since. As you say, you never know what the next day is going to bring, but it really has been a journey in terms of learning and experience.
Well, thanks so much for sharing all that, Matt. What I love in your story is how it's led, you know, your blended passion for the world of understanding numbers, whether it be in markets or within companies, and the passion for reinforcing your own knowledge through teaching others in just the educational sphere. How those two things have sort of come together and combined into the power that is FinanceIQ. And I want to spend a little time talking about FinanceIQ in just a minute. But before we get there, what I'd love to do is, you know, for some of the folks who might be listening in either right now or to the recording, they might be saying, okay, great, Matt, you got all this finance experience. You've been looking at markets. We know like finance is a very complicated and complex topic. Like, why would I really care about all of that stuff, right? It doesn't necessarily apply to my career in marketing, or it doesn't apply to my career as a product engineer or in the tech space. When you hear people talking a little bit about that, like, I'd love to get your perspective on how everyone can sort of take the concept of finance and knowing your business and use it as a career accelerator. Great question, Griff. And people have passions for different things. And I even if I'm not passionate about something, I love to see somebody talk about something that they're passionate about. And that really is exciting to me. In terms of finance, you know, whether we like it or not, it touches our life in so many ways, directly, indirectly. It could be personal finance. It could be, you know, the prospects for your company. It could be your employment.
It could be your family. But money and the changing of money as it passes through markets and it passes through people will affect a lot of what we do. And there's a lot of emotion tied to that, where I don't think people fully understand that, what that represents. To say, hey, I don't want to talk about money, I don't like it, but a lot of things are tied to that. Okay, the future, retirement, college for your kids, what my next, what I can do next and how I can live my life. And what I've found in this world is that, in this world of today, I should say, is that there's so much information that comes out there that people are overwhelmed. There's jargon, there's acronyms, there's terminology, there's new products, and people are just overwhelmed. And if they understood that a little bit more and sort of peeled back the curtain, they really wouldn't be that afraid. And I think that knowledge, no matter how they want to apply it, career-wise, personally, or with others, brings a level of at least understanding to people where they can say, okay, I'm not confused. People don't like to be confused. They don't like uncertainty. And I think that's where a lot of this can be applied.
Yeah, I love that. The finance as just more of a mindset, thinking about what are the implications from a business perspective, either on my organization for things that are happening outside or inside my organization. Developing that muscle is such it's such an important skill to have. Not only if you want to become, more senior in your organization, or if you want to potentially start your own business and all the implications from a financial perspective you have to have as an entrepreneur. Matt, I'm curious to get your perspective as well. And obviously some financial acumen things can be done for people inside their organizations. But if someone came to you and just said, like, I'm looking to kind of really, up my financial expertise chops, maybe as it relates to my business, maybe as it relates to the market, but they're not getting a huge amount of enablement from the organization they're part of. What are some of the more basic steps that you would offer up to someone to get a little bit more financial literacy or financial acumen into their daily routine so that they can really start to flex those skills and build themselves into that business owner mentality?
Again, love the question. My first response would be get your company to have a firm come in and do some courses, but it's an ongoing thing, Griff. And people have to be proactive about what they want to know. And one thing because I get this question all the time, people say, how do I get to know what's going on out there better? Now, there's these days many ways to do that. But it starts with an intellectual curiosity, and it starts with, I think, asking questions. So one of the first things I say to people is, okay, if you want to start understanding a particular area of finance or just finance in general, just say the markets. Okay? Start paying attention to the news. What is going on? And read what's happening today. And if you have questions about something, I don't understand what the VIX is. I don't understand what volatility means. I don't understand why markets move down more sharply than higher. Okay, and make those questions, answer those questions to the best of your ability. And what I've found is finding the right people to ask is probably the most helpful thing. Now, there's a lot of resources out there on the internet. We all know that there's too much. Okay, and there's a lot of places you can go that can tell you some information, and other places they can go that can not only give you sort of half the story but the wrong story. So what I also suggest to people is that if you're going to go online, go to a credible source. You go to a blog, it could be written by a 6-year-old and they sound really smart, but that's that wouldn't really be what I would base my answers to my boss's question or to a client. Well, I read this blog and they said that the US dollar is going to be the strongest currency in the next 10 years. Well, I want a little more foundation than that. So, I think there's established sources of information. There's established, an accredited universities as well as organizations, the World Bank, the IMF, that have a ton of information. Now, there's also courses you can take online, and we offer that as well in terms of, okay, I can't sit in on a session, but I can learn myself. But it really has to come from the person's desire to want to know. And if you have the desire, the route will be there. So I sort of summarize it saying, ask a lot of questions, not only of what's going on out there, but of people, and they'll be your best answers.
And is it fair to say, because one of the things you brought up earlier, Matt, that I think is really powerful in the sense of, we always, you and I, being learning geeks that we are, there is this reinforcement mechanism of giving back what you've researched or what you've heard. And so I can imagine also a powerful mechanism being, go out, do your research, talk to people, but then come back either to the same people or different individuals and test kind of telling that story, or test giving out that, that knowledge application, so that you can reinforce what you understand and even potentially learn additionally.
Absolutely, Griff. If the best way to learn is to teach, and if you can explain something quickly and simply to somebody else, you know it. And you'll find that out pretty quickly. You're in front of an audience of 150 people and you get a question, you have to either know the answer or you don't, and that'll get your attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Matt, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I really want to get your perspective on a couple of really hot topics in the world of finance. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into some areas that I'm sure a lot of folks who are listening in might have either questions on a validity around, or just would love to hear a perspective of someone who's kind of sat in the financial world for as long and for esteemed as you have. First one I want to bring up, obviously right now we're seeing crazy inflation numbers. We're seeing supply chain issues that are driving up cost of oil, cost of shipping. I mean, we're in a financial world that I don't think I really understand to all that this level of certainty. I'd be curious to get your perspective on all these swirling things that are happening. We've had such an influx of cash into personal wallets with a lot of the recovery plans. What is your sense of sort of where the world of finance is heading?
Again, wonderful perspective. I can be real short and say, I don't know. I'm just like everybody else. But I do know this.
I'm going to push you though and say, what do you think? Not what do you know, what do you think?
This is what I think. Regarding your initial question about inflation, from my perspective, I remember days of double-digit inflation. And for so long, we've had really none. And then we had a target of 2%, and now we're running over that, and people are getting a little excited, more than a little excited. Now, you don't throw money into a market like a lot of central banks have done and not have repercussions. And I think that's an element of what we have here. Regarding inflation, you mentioned supply chain and some of the actual inflation numbers. When I look at that, you look at the biggest component, and that is energy, and that's oil, and that's gas prices. Just go fill your car up. And I think that's what's going to drive inflation itself and what levels we're at. We've been through this before, the tapering process about 10 years ago, taper tantrums. I couldn't understand that. And I said, well, there's good economic news. Well, that means there's going to be less money out there and we're going to sell the market. And I think that's going to happen. Now, in terms of the future, it's, to me, it's technology and new products. And even though I come from an old world where, blotters were written by hand and tickets were written by hand, okay, it's technology that we're going to have to embrace, and that's really where we're going to be on a continuous basis going forward. And I don't think I'm a maverick for saying that, but it's how I feel.
Yeah, and Matt, it's a perfect segue, because the next place I wanted to ping your expertise around is a lot of the evolution, the disruption that's happening, and some of the things you're mentioning. I know you have a particular passion for researching things like cryptocurrency, things like decentralization of markets, things like even I think back to an example like IEX from a few years ago. who chose a decentralized routing system for their market exchange to give a little bit more fairness and try to butt out high frequency traders and the impact there. What I also find really fascinating about the world of cryptocurrency, decentralized blockchaining, and those kind of things is they've almost become super bipolarized in many respects, just like a lot of other things in our society right now. You either have sort of like the firm believers or the firm disbelievers. Look at something like NFTs. People are saying this is going to revolutionize the way we contract and the way we store value, and the other side says these are glorified baseball cards on a digital receipt. When it comes to cryptocurrency, this is how we're going to revolutionize financial systems, really even the playing field in the world. And on the other side of it, you have people saying, actually, this is just a way to run up a value, and this thing's never actually going to take off from a mainstream perspective. So I know there's a lot in there, but I'd be curious just at a starting point to hear a little bit of like, what are you researching when it comes to these big topics? Because there's so many places you can go, and obviously you're going to get a little bit of a opinionated story wherever you might head.
Yeah, and there is a lot of opinions out there, and there's no shortage of people who are willing to tell you. Now, in terms of the research, I'll get back to what I was saying before. It's really every day. What is actually going on? With thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. Why? Who's behind them? What are they hoping to achieve? Now, if I had to say, they are going to be a big part of the future, and DeFi or decentralized finance is not just something that is going to pop up as it's done and go away. To me, all the evidence I see is that a large part of our financial system is going to be decentralized. And there's, no matter what people want or what they think, once something's already been exposed, such as, I'll just use Bitcoin as an analogy, and I think that is a great sort of proxy for everything else. And of course, we've seen it go up, in value of late. And people will say it's a fiat currency or it's just another way. But you know what? Every currency is. What is really backed up here? So I'm a believer in that's the way we're moving. Who's going to be the winners and losers? I think the technology itself is going to be the winner. Is the blockchain application, not only through cryptos, but really through every type of process.
Matt, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think blockchain is something that, like, at a high level, a lot of people can kind of grasp onto the concept. But what is the utility of that concept, across the world? Not just because I know it gets tagged a lot to cryptocurrency, but what do you see as sort of the utility from a global or from a macro perspective?
Well, I think it's, we talk about this concept of open ledger, and people want to understand, sort of the route, for instance, of money. People are always worried about, for instance, money laundering or the sources of money or how something got to be. And you can argue that, crypto is a way that people do this. But the open ledger and the records and putting them together and see what the path is, I think is important, not only to find where it's been and who's been involved in this, but also in terms of its efficiencies. When we start talking about processing of, from my world, let's say a trade ticket, or from the sort of the online retailers, how quickly they move. Okay, the efficiency of this and the cost of it and the access to it has really democratized a lot of the processes out there that we didn't have before. And I think that's the most effective part of this.
Yeah, that's I really appreciate that additional color. I mean, it's such an interesting time to be studying this stuff. And I love, going back to one of the first things you said is like the diligence, the routine to do it every day is going to build that perspective for you. And if you continue to look at diverse sources, you're going to build an education for yourself that is super informed. And I don't know if any of us really know if it's going to, some of these things are going to be super successful and change the way we do things, or if they're just going to be fads that we look back on. But at least we can continue to have informed conversation about it.
And I say that to people, that's what I think, but what do I know?
Well, I think you know a lot. I think that's why I love having this conversation with you. Is you've seen different cycles and those kind of things. Matt, kind of bringing it back. I know we get a little dovetail there. So, for folks who aren't as into the financial nerdery that Matt and I might be, that was a little bit of a rabbit hole. But coming back to FinanceIQ, because again, this has been it's kind of become like your two life passions converging. When you talk about getting really deep into finance and understanding the world of markets, and not just markets, but how they affect businesses and organizations of all sizes, matching that with love for education, love for teaching, love for knowledge sharing. Tell the audience a little bit more about FinanceIQ, what it is you all do, sort of the purpose behind the organization, and what are some of the good stuff you have going on there right now.
Great. FinanceIQ, as I said, my partner Lance and I started this approximately 7 years ago, but we've both been working as in teaching and training before that. Where we really pride ourselves, and we say this to our clients, and by the way, our clients are mainly financial services institutions, but we deal with a number of regulators, a few corporations, insurance companies, funds. So there's a lot in terms of sort of the spectrum of who we speak to. What we want to bring to the table isn't a formula or an equation or a theory. It's an explanation of how things work and why it means what it does today. So it's a real world application. I don't think of it as school. I think of it as job enhancement. And for me, it's the greatest situation in the world. As you say, it marries two passions. I love to teach. I love the challenge of it. Okay, again, like I was saying before, I need to be challenged all the time. And if I can't explain something, I don't know it, and I better go back and study it. But I want to make it relevant. We want to make it relevant. And some of the more interesting things that we've done lately, to answer the second part of your question, is a focus on what we just talked about. What's the future look like? What is, say in the world of payments? I had a presentation on that last week. What are people doing about that in the banking system? What are they doing about that across industries? You have a different landscape out there where you have non-traditional financial services that are playing in this field. Okay, you have your buzzwords, you have your fintech. Okay, well, who are they? So there's a lot going on there that I'm very excited about, because it is a different world. Not just because of the pandemic, but there is a change that is going on unlike anything I've seen. And you stick around long enough, you see a lot.
Yeah. I shouldn't say I hate to put you on the spot, because I do love putting people on the spot, as you know, Matt. But if you were to give a little bit of advice to folks who are listening to this, and whether or not they're in careers within finance, or whether or not they're in careers with trajectory that they're going to have some kind of financial profit and loss responsibility for an organization they're part of, they had to focus on 2 or 3 things to really get some deep acumen or expertise in as it relates to finance, what would those areas of focus be from your perspective?
Great question. I always say this to people, and I wish I had done more of this, that understanding accounting and how books are managed, or something that, whether it be managerial accounting, whether it be financial accounting, tax accounting, is a skill even at a rudimentary level, because it's really not about numbers. It's about a different way of doing something. It's really about a process. So understanding accounting at some level, I think, is extremely important. And then it would be understanding, what financial products mean. Okay, what are the asset classes? Okay, what are stocks? What are bonds? What are currencies? Okay, at some level you can explain them, but what do they really represent? So I'd understand products. I'd have a good understanding of some accounting. And again, if I had to go back, I would do much more accounting. Okay, even though I'd hate myself for it, it would have been very beneficial. And then I would say, in the world of finance itself, okay, I was talking more generally for people across industries, but it would be understanding valuation, modeling. Okay, now it sounds a little specific, but it's not really as specific as it sounds. Understanding where the value of something comes from. What's the value of your house? What's the value of your land? What's the value of your portfolio? Where does that valuation come from? I think that's important.
Okay. So what I love about that too is accounting is a little bit of the practice of understanding the past, and valuation and modeling is a little bit about understanding how do you do an estimate. You try to be accurate about estimating the future. So a little bit of the before and the after approach.
And the accounting gives you the language of finance. So what's a debit? What's a credit? So if you hear these words, and again, I like definitions, being able to explain them, I think helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, I want to switch gears, going into our last area of focus for our conversation, to partnerships. And one of the things I think is really obvious in our conversation and in our previous relationship is that you have a serious passion for the type of work you do, a serious passion for the specifics around the kind of things you offer clients, the kind of things you offer individuals, in these training programs and experiences. Relating that to why partnerships are so important. You think about organizations like ours, we're not necessarily the biggest organizations in the world. We have some expertise, we have some points of view, but how have partnerships really benefited you and the organization in terms of really, really solving problems for client organizations?
Partnerships, Griff, I look at it two ways. It's the internal partnership, okay, myself and my partner, and that's got to work, and it does. That's important. But more specifically to what you asked, partnering with other companies, with other people, with other organizations. And what we find with that is that, we're very good at understanding what we do and what we don't do, what we can and what we can't do. And we turned away work where we say, what, we're not the best to do that. What we really value is our reputation more than anything. And we really want to represent what we do the best. Now, with that in mind, there are things that we don't do or we don't do well, and having a partner in that who can help us, for instance, having a partner with our online library, okay, somebody who we can work with. It's not us going out and doing it, because that would take me a year to figure that out. It's having somebody who not only can do that for us, but do that with us. And I, think of a partnership as really a connection, not just a one-way street. It's, what can we offer out to them as well? And I'd also say this, we partner with our clients, and we think of clients as partners. So in terms of them achieving their goals and what they need to do, they'll come to us and say, what should we be looking at here? How should we structure something? And that, just from a business standpoint, that's opened up a lot of business to us. And it's really made a difference in terms of our growth.
I love that. Matt, I guess a follow-up question for you on that is, I love the multi-perspective use of the word partner. What kind of validating criteria are you really thinking about when you're looking at organizations, whether it's bringing in someone internally or whether it's partnering with another solutions provider, or you think about clients? What are some of the things? What are those top 2 to 3 things you're really thinking about and finding those symbiotic relationships that are going to make whatever this relationship from a partner perspective is really, really sing?
Well, we really like to see, we really like to know what we're getting into. And so we want to see, essentially 2 things. Number one, what do you do? What do you say you do? What do you specialize in? Okay. And then what have you done lately? What has been your latest project? What can you show me, evidence or results that would, to me, be enough to partner or to hire or to do business with another firm? Certainly a well-placed recommendation by somebody that we respect and trust, that always is helpful. That might be the door opener. But I want to know, what do you do and what have you done lately? And you know what? We like that question back at us too. Well, I'll ask you the same question, and I'm very happy to offer that out. This is what we do. We'll show you what we do, and this is what we're doing now, and this is what we've done.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And Matt, I know one of the other things you and I talk about somewhat consistently is the need for partnerships and the need for evolution of thinking in the world of professional services. And I think, you look at like an example, like, the tech industry, and obviously tech industry is a large term full of different layers, levels, areas of expertise. But, terms that have become really ubiquitous in the world of technology are like co-opetition and partnerships and strategic integrators and things that you're basically seeing a network of people who are relying on other organizations to deliver parts of the value chain. And I think that happens in professional services, but I do think there is this little bit of a mental blocker for a lot of us because we have a level of expertise, like we kind of base our work on human capital expertise less than product expertise. I'd be curious to get your perspective on just how do you see the world of professional services evolving around the idea of things like co-opetition, being a little bit more clear on how we work, together to help clients, as opposed to always trying to compete and always trying to build out our own services to try to make them better than those from someone who might be a little bit more specialized in an area.
Griff, the big reason why we have these situations, as you say, like, cooperation and, competition, is because of the access that we have now. We can talk to anybody. A long time ago, it'd be much, much harder to do this. So the access really sets the stage for this. And what I think ironically has happened is that because we've become so globalized, we've actually been able to now specialize even more. Back in the day, before you had supermarket chains, and now we don't have malls, but from my experience, you had the local specialty shop, you had the local service shop that specialized in one thing, and that's who you went to. You didn't go to one place. I think you have the same type of environment in our digitized world now, where people can specialize again, and they can be the best at what they do and offer that up. Now, in terms of a business model, okay, you have to sort of look at the end result. Okay, and we're as competitive, trust me, as anybody I know. But we're also not going to forsake, what we can do in terms of growing our business because of, what we may get into with somebody else or a partnership. We're looking at the again, not to use a cliche, but the synergy. Is there an additional piece here that we're going to create by partnering up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are all great call outs. One thing that I specifically have found a lot of value in as you're thinking about customers and clients as partners is being really honest and clear about things you can do, and then having a network of other providers who do other things better and showing a customer that. I mean, there's almost a double amount of trust to say, not only should you trust us to do the things that we're currently contracted to work on you with, but we know a whole host of other individuals who can do really great things for you, and we're willing to bring you into that network. I mean, imagine just the level of trust you can build from an immediate standpoint with that kind of approach.
Griff, that's an excellent point, because that's also providing service to your clients. Is, who do you know? We get questions all the time. Who do you know who can do this or can do that? And we're very careful about, who we'll partner up with. But, I think it's a validator too. And it's really more than a network. It's the connection. I know we always talked about that before. Okay, so it's not just, hey, we know a lot of people and we can give you names. It's, we know them, and we've done work for them. They've done work for us, and we're willing to stake our reputation on that. More importantly, we think they can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Staking your reputation and willing to back it up with that access, yeah, and being that provider. Matt, I want to get into some rapid fire questions with you. Some serious, some maybe not as serious. Before we get into those though, just a quick plug on FinanceIQ. So where can folks, whether it's potential opportunities to use your services, potential opportunities to learn more about the services you focus on, maybe partnerships, et cetera, where can folks go to find out more information about FinanceIQ?
We have a web address like everyone else. Ours is a little unique. It's financeiq.net. and we try to get the dot, and we have the others. We try to get the .com, and somebody has it. We're not giving it up. So FinanceIQ.net is where you can reach us. And for myself and my partner, it's Matt. My partner's name is Lance Eckel. Matt, Lance at FinanceIQ.net. And on our website, we'll have our other contact information as well, such as our phone number. And we'll be more than happy to speak with anybody about, as we just talked about what we do, what we've done, what we're doing right now. So I encourage people to give us a call.
Absolutely. Well, I think, Matt, one piece of advice, maybe you can alter the pitch a little bit around the .net. I think you can go something like, we're .net because we only care about the net profit of our clients. We care about your bottom line. So we're going with .net versus .com. What do you think about that?
Well, I like it, Griff, because I found out very quickly I'm not a marketer. And I found that out in business school when I tried to get out of marketing, and the marketing professor said, well, have you worked in marketing before? Are you exempt? I said, no, I just know I want to do finance. And he didn't like that answer. And I really have not, and that was a long time ago. So I will take your lead on that. That's actually something I never even thought of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, feel free to pass the royalty check. I'll give you my address later. All right, Matt, let's get into rapid fire. A couple questions for you here. Again, some serious, some not so serious. One that's a little bit serious. I know you have spent some time in the options world. Mm-hmm. How would you describe an options contract to a 6-year-old?
An options contract to a 6-year-old, I would describe it to them as an insurance policy. Okay, something that can protect you if you buy it, and something that if you sell it, and I really probably wouldn't go into that with a 6-year-old, okay, can bring you money in. So I was liking, when I'm explaining options, 6-year-old, smart 6-year-old, as insurance. This can protect you from something that could hurt you, but it comes with a cost.
All right. So, and I mean, we can relate that back to the 6-year-old bloggers who are writing things about finance. Now they're going to have a little bit more to write about.
Now.
Not so serious question for you. An NFT of our conversation right now, like someone taking a snapshot, what do you think that'd be worth in 5 years?
Oof. Well, you know what? I'd ask what currency. In Bitcoin, in US dollars, in something else. I will say this, I am confident that it'll be appreciable, but I'm also know this, is that there's risks, but there's uncertainty in the future. And we don't know, if you were 5 years ago at a job interview and somebody's, that tired question, where are you going to be in 5 years? And you said, well, I'm going to be locked down in a global pandemic, wearing a mask, and so is everybody else. And say, thanks for coming in. Don't call us, we'll call you. So we don't know, but I'm confident that it would appreciate.
Yeah. Okay. I like that matching trajectory to appreciation here. Matt, one slightly more serious question. Most impactful book around financial topics or financial considerations that you've read in the last few years?
One I read in the last month, actually I have it here, DeFi and the Future of Finance. Came out about a month ago, written by one of my business school professors who I'm still in touch with. It has, especially right now, has been a tremendous influence on how, I understand decentralized finance and, what's next. And it's a short book because you know what? In 6 months, it's going to be different. Now, going back, books that have made an impact on me prior to this, I think one of them was When Genius Failed, about long-term capital management, and about 10 years, and this is dating myself, before the financial crisis, and what actually happened there. You had a hedge fund with all the smart people, and they almost blew up the financial system. I think that was a very important book.
Yeah, love that book. Also goes back to two of your passion areas, a bunch of academics getting into the world of finance with what were some of the original algorithms, right, that were brought into how to trade and how to make arbitrage in the marketplace. Definitely check out When Genius Failed for the folks who are tuning into this. All right, Matt, I have two more questions for you. One, not so serious again. Sorry for kind of messing around here at the end. Dogecoin or Bitcoin? Which one are you investing in more right now?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Okay. No Doge.
Without
No
hesitation.
Doge folks out there. Matt, we'll end with an impact question. Thinking about, again, so much has happened in the last 18 to 20 months in all of our lives. What's a biggest thing in your approach to your work life that's changed over the last 18 to 20 months than prior?
I think it's my perspective, Griff, is that, over the years I've learned there's things I can control and not control, and there's things that are going to happen that nobody's going to expect. So, I have to, and I don't have a choice because I've been around so long, have to have a long-term perspective, but take care of business today. Somebody once told me, and this is something that really impacted me, is that, think about your business as a filing cabinet. Okay, on the top, you have a small drawer, and that's for stuff that goes on today and right now. The second drawer is a little bit deeper, and that may be for your intermediate products. And then your big drawer is the long term. And that's going to be there until you go down and weed it out. So your perspective has to be there, but your focus has to be today. All
right. I love the analogy, and hopefully everyone who's listening in at least knows what a file cabinet is, given the world digitization that we've been under. But Matt, buddy, it was a pleasure to have a little conversation. I know we touched on a lot of topics. Thanks for jumping on with us. Thanks for being a part of the community here. And we'll definitely be in touch. And I hope some folks will reach out to you from this, because I know you have a lot of different levels of expertise around the world of finance. And I know you can potentially help a lot of folks, whether it's sort out for themselves or how it potentially elevates their career. Thanks so much for jumping on with us.
My pleasure and privilege, Griff, and thank you and Anthony. It's a great part of my day, and happy to do it again.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Take care.
All right. So thanks everyone again for tuning in to this episode 60 of Navigating Now around finance and partnerships, the power of knowing your business. We have another episode coming up next Thursday, same time, same place. Episode 61 is titled The Messy Middle of Entrepreneurship. Michaela Parlett from Table for Two is going to be joining us. Anthony will be back. Anthony Ewing, one of our partners, will be back in the host seat, asking the tough, the serious, and the not so serious questions of Michaela as they talk about entrepreneurship, the messiness, but also the impact. Thanks again for tuning in. You can find all of our Thaudium content on our YouTube channel. And if you'd like to see more about our offerings and our solutions, thaudium.com for all the things we have going on. Again, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.